Welcome to the moment that changed everything, where we interview notable creative people to gain insights into how they got started and learn more about the moments that shaped them and their careers. Today we sit down with Scott Stratten. Scott is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and was rated one of the top 5 social media influencers in the world by Forbes.com.
Nobody wants to be different. Everybody wants the results of being different. They don't want to do different. But brands look at that and say, we want to go viral too, but they're not willing to take the stand that created that.
In this episode, we get his insights into creating his multimedia brand, Unmarketing Inc., how he went from running a successful viral marketing agency for over a decade before filing bankruptcy, and what happened when he gave himself just 30 days to turn it all around, leveraging a then burgeoning platform known as Twitter. Hold on to your hats. This is a good one. Hey, Scott Stratten.
What's up?
Welcome to the show.
I don't ever drive in to go to a show, but you sold me on it. You're like Airstream and cool workspaces, and I'm like, I'm a hipster. I'm in.
Yeah.
I got the man bun, the beard, the tats. Good to go.
And I heard you got lost on the way here too.
You all have to listen right now because I was sold on this because you did a great sales job on it. I don't like to do work. That's the whole sentence, by the way. I don't like I don't like putting a lot of effort into most things, and I do like putting effort into watching sports and playing Xbox and an hour on stage. But so I get this thing of like it's going to be a cool Airstream trailer, and I'm going to awesome. Okay, let's go do it. So I go do it. I'm going to turn off my phone so these annoying sounds don't come in. And so, but the GPS takes me to, and all I hear you say is Airstream trailer. I'm like, cool vibe. And I pull around and it brings me to the other side of this block, and I pull into an alleyway. That's where my GPS says it's right here. And yes, there's an Airstream trailer broken down in the alleyway. And I'm like, well, I guess this is the show.
Yeah.
It turns out it was not.
Yeah.
It was the wrong side of the block.
The Wall Street Journal didn't go to the abandoned Airstream trailer and going like, these guys are really cutting edge now. Look at what they're doing.
I said it's not a hipster. It's homeless.
It's homeless.
Yeah. But this is much better where we are now.
Well, we're so excited to have you on, and you're by far the biggest name that we've had on this on the show so far. So I'm gonna
the biggest head.
Yeah, doing my best not to screw it up. So. A big part of our audience are young people who are looking to get involved in advertising and some marketing.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But then we also have some brands that we work with, so some CMOs. So I'd be remiss if we didn't get into some talk about marketing.
What's up, CMOs? That's all you're getting.
Yeah.
That's all you're getting. That's what you get.
Yeah.
What's up? Now, you get everything else. You get bonuses and expense accounts and everything else. This is for the interns.
Yeah.
This is for the people. This is for the students. This is for the beginners because you haven't been jaded yet.
Yeah.
CMOs, shush.
So my first question was going to be, I might change it now after that, but but my first question was going to be, so how this passion for marketing, where did it come from? Because I know you went to Sheridan, you did business and
human resources. Yeah.
And
look at me now.
Yeah, I'm like trying to connect those dots, but maybe there's something I don't see.
Yeah.
When did you know that marketing was going to be your thing?
So to make those dots connect a little more logically, I went to school. I knew I wanted to go into HR for a very long time, but the main reason was because I wanted to be in front of the room. I wanted to do training. I wanted to be speaking, and I knew training was the teaching aspect of things, and I liked it. But I also love and I have a passion for people, but more treating people right. And the tattoo on my arm that says "Unlearn" is not a brand thing. It's about unlearning hate and stereotypes and racism and sexism and homophobia. And I knew that I could, if I wanted to, I like standing up for people. I like standing up for the little guy. I don't like bullying corporately or in school or anything else. So I knew I could make a difference. And then I learned that it's really hard internally to do that. HR, my experience, HR, we were answering management, not defending employees, and that was the reverse of why I got into it. And so 2 years I lasted in corporate HR, and I had to fire people and lay people off, and I'm just like, I want to make people's lives better. And I know there's a good way to let people go, and I knew how to do it, and I laid a lot of people off, and it was never easy. The 50th time was as hard as the first time, and but I knew training. So I got a job as a sales training manager for a packaging company up by the airport at Polyair. And so my job was flying around North America, training people how to sell pretty much bubble wrap. So I want to make sure we all heard that.
Literally.
I flew around North America training people how to sell bubble wrap. If you think what you sell is hard right now, I sold air. Okay, and it was competitive marketplace too. So we're talking about discounts and pricing on air. You want to have a product that's really hard, not economically friendly to ship? Air.
Yeah.
18-wheelers of air, an entire 18-wheeler of bubble wrap is like $8. It's not.
Part of me actually was really interested in hearing how this pitch goes, because I envisioned something that's about 12 seconds long with a loud pop at the end. Yeah, that's right.
That's it. Did you bring any with you? That's all we want to know. Like that was the whole, and where it went, but. Going on at the same time, parallel to all of this, is my first love is music. I wanted to be a lead. I was a lead singer of a metal band in high school, and I realized I didn't have the vocal chops for it, but I had the business acumen for it. And so I always tell people I just fired the band and stayed on stage. Much better to split it one way than five. But what I did, I started managing bands. So I cut my chops and my marketing teeth. At Lee's Palace and the Horseshoe and the Rivoli and the Opera House and El Macombo and all these places where I think the best way to cut your teeth in marketing is literally to have no budget and no awareness and see what you can do. I think it's really hard. And people sometimes come up to me now because I haven't had my marketing agency for a decade, and they're like, well, yeah, but you're not doing it. I'm like, well, find an unknown band and make them known with no budget. And make it 20-something years ago. No social media, no anything like that. We started doing email lists, and we used to be at the door where people would show up to the show on a Tuesday night at Lee's Palace, and I'm nervous. And instead of getting the $4 for the cover charge, which we got $2 of, we would waive that if they gave us their email address, if they had an email address. Back then, it wasn't a thing. It was optional, and companies would have 5 corporate email addresses: sales at company, marketing at company. This is in 96, 97, 98, and we realized building this list was more important than just getting $2 or getting people to a show. And we started doing a street team. We did all these things. So actually, the book on marketing, it could have been called "What I Learned from Lee's Palace." It really was. It was the backbone of everything. So I took the training and the speaking and then the sales type of stuff, and that was we started doing packaging training on sale, but in a consultative selling way, and it was really cool way we were setting up, and learned a lot with that. And the marketing of bands all came together for what turned out to be unmarketing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I think, clearly, you've branded this unmarketing and unthing, and it's pretty amazing that little suffix immediately differentiates yourself from everybody else. And it seems almost counterintuitive, but it's such that you're really intrigued to know why. So how did you look at stuff like promoting a band and then kind of looking at it in a completely different way? And I can't believe you did the email thing when, like, what was the thing that made you kind of go, we need to get these people's emails, or these 5 emails that these companies have?
The theory that started everything for me was it was out of anger, like most things for me, right? Something was just pissing me off, and it was this whole interruptive marketing state, and it was just always this blasting of messages, like untargeted blasted messages. So that was advertising a lot of the time. It was just the shotgun approach. It was this push and pray, right? You push your message out and pray it resonates or it works. And so I came up with, at the time, it was pull and stay, which was you get their information so then you can control the reaching out, and then you stay in front of them with whatever relevant, and that's key, is the relevant and something they've agreed to sign up for. So when they have a need for your business, they choose you automatically. And that was what the foundation of unmarketing. The funny thing is the first tagline for unmarketing was how to market without spending a dime, which that only attracted people who had no money. And so the consulting side did not fly off the shelves at the time. And so I realized you're targeting, it's exactly, but it was, I remember coming up with the concept. It was 18 years ago, just 18 years ago, a few weeks ago. And it was, I just sat there and was thinking that there's got to be other people out there that resonate with the message of you don't have to be a prick to market properly, meaning you don't have to blast. And because this whole was like without any collateral damage thought, it was just like if the more messages we blast, the more money we make, and don't care about who else we annoy. It was buy or goodbye, right? If you're not buying, I don't want to hear from you. And that's, I don't think that's the way. And unmarketing isn't anti-marketing. It's just the other side of things. And unmarketing, by the way, is to just do the big reveal is marketing. And people try to call me on that. They're like, so it is marketing. I'm like,
Hey.
Yeah, it's a hook, right? I picked the word unmarketing for the company name because I thought it would look good on a book cover one day. And that's how it happens. It does look pretty decent on a book cover. But I remember the first day when I got the first book deal, and I finally made it. And screw you, grade 11 English teacher who never thought I'd amount to anything with the written word. And all this stuff came out. And we got the cover. And I told our publisher Wiley, I'm like, I want a brown paper bag style and just unmarketing on the front. And stop marketing, start engaging. That's it. I don't want my face on it. I don't want any of this. And they did it. It looked perfect. And I shared it. And the first guy who replied was United Nations Marketing.
Okay.
Because he thought it was the UN. It said UN marketing instead of unmarketing. I'm like, the first reaction to my first book cover ever that's now finalized is you're like, oh, that's not right. Yeah. Like, oh no. So beware, never read the comments, as we all know.
Right.
And that's where it's led to, my brain has always been about hooks though. So hooks in music, hooks in titles, and hooks that you don't want to veer towards that clickbaity side of things, but it's exactly what you said. On marketing is intriguing. That's the entire goal of a title is I want to know more. Isn't that the actual definition of marketing? So unmarketing is really the definition. It's doing something that creates awareness, that creates interest, that maybe spurs action. Yeah. And that's where unmarketing came under, and it led to finally the untrilogy, right? Unmarketing, unbranding, and unselling, and now all three of them are out, and it's awesome. And this is what I've always wanted.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of our guests are advertising specific, and we get into talking about the landscape of advertising right now and who's doing what, and I think marketing too is one of those industries where a lot of people doing the same sorts of things inside an industry that is always preaching about being different and trying to be different than everybody else, and yet everyone's approach seems to be so similar.
Nobody wants to be different.
Right.
Nobody. Everybody wants the results of being different. They don't want to do different. Most of the time, I found in actions in the industry was something about, well, let's do enough not to get in trouble, not too little not to get in trouble. Right, it's just not rocking the boat. And every brand they see something go out there, and they see a campaign go really well. They see something that resonates, that goes. It could be the Gillette, the ad about with the what the real man is, and which I was on the news for a bunch because when something hits the fan in Canada, they call Scott.
Right.
So when my phone rings, it just says CBC, and I just pick it up and like, what hit the fan? Go. And so something like Gillette, it certainly. Helped Gillette in a lot of ways, and that's just one example. But brands look at that and say, we want to go viral too, but they're not willing to take the stand that created that.
Why do you think that is?
Because people are well too self-involved with things. They're self-interests. You look at comp structures. Look at hierarchies at companies where if I take this risk and it goes poorly, I can lose my job. If I don't take this risk and it goes poorly, it's just that's status quo. And we don't reward risk. We reward success, which sometimes comes from risk, but we don't reward risk. If something you try and it doesn't work, we reprimand people. The client gets mad, our agency gets mad, it all goes bad, and then next thing you know, I may or may not have a job. So we don't reward that. I'd like when places say at least try it, at least. And sometimes if it's an agency, so you've got to pitch the idea back to your client, and they turn it down. Nothing you can do.
Yeah.
But at least rewarding those people in house, especially the creative people. You want to turn off creativity, bring in negativity. Right? That's the issue when it comes to creativity. You can't be creative when you're feeling like you're being pressed down or pressured when it comes to, I can't bring that idea up, or we can't take that risk. You can't get the results of risk without doing it.
Yeah, and I guess at the heart of that might be something called failure, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much trust involved, for younger people who are getting involved in, say, the creative business. When you sit across from a big brand and you're pitching an idea and you're asking them to take a risk, you have that sense like, well, there's a ton of trust there because we're paying for it, and we want you to run with it.
Right.
But if it fails, everybody freaks out. And yet I have to imagine that, a big part of taking risks is about failure too, because unless someone goes to someone like you and says, well, Scott has all the right answers, so I can trust Scott and he's going to give me the right information, so it will be successful.
Yeah.
There's a ton of businesses out there that are asking for trust in search of the right thing, but what if they are wrong?
And I remember somebody came when we used to have our viral video agency a long time ago, where back in the days of dial-ups and loading screens, we had the most successful viral video agency on the planet. We were the number one company. That was my company. And but even then, people would come up, a client would come up, and they were referred from somebody else. We only went on referrals, and they came and we got on the phone and we made these slideshows back in the day. Remember with the cheesy text and music and stock photos, the Time movie and the Dash movie. If you ever saw those, that was mostly us, and I'm sorry. I'm greatly sorry for those, but they worked. And I remember being on a call. So I have this proven track record. Back then, we got millions of views for these things. With millions then are billions now. So back then, when I said we got 1 million views of a animated slideshow, it was earth-shattering. And now it's like that's a day of Bieber, on YouTube. And so it's not as impressive, but then it was. And I get on the phone, and this client starts saying, "No, I think you should do this way." And I'm like, "No, this is what will happen. This is what will work. This is what will resonate." And she's like, "Are you telling me I don't know anything about viral marketing?" And I said, "Yes. It's why you hired me." And this is one of the biggest problems. And I think the fault lies in the whole ecosystem sometimes. The client who wants results without risk. And then there's the agency sometimes that don't listen to sometimes the best people for the job when it comes to the idea, which is younger staff. We always have this pecking order in our head, and we made a deal. We made a deal back in the day. I'm sure you and I did. We were told these fables back when we were young. We go back to the 80s, and we were told just go to school, go to college, go to university, get a job, prove your worth, learn the ropes, pay your dues, and then one day you too can have all this stress and anxiety of somebody running a place. Right? And we were told that. And now it's not like that necessarily. And us people who are in our 40s and our 50s are like, whoa, hang on a second. Who do you think you are telling me how TikTok works for our client? Right? How do you know what Tweezer is like? How do you know what Bookface is like? So we're so irate sometimes that they have these ideas that are great, but we discredit them simply because they're new. Yet the biggest asset today is sometimes that group of people who are coming out of school that know all those platforms better. Because when we say advertising, it's no longer saying, well, advertising is print and radio and TV, and then social media is over here. Advertising is just part of everything. And when are we going to pay to push a message out? That to me is advertising. Well, who knows better than the demographic we're going after? I remember somebody come up to me, because I have this millennial rant in my talk, which is actually, it flips, and I'm actually on the side of millennials and younger people when I do a switch of it halfway through the talk. And somebody came up to me and said, and she's a millennial, and she says, we sat around a boardroom at work at our agency, and they brought in a millennial expert and didn't ask the 6 millennials in the room what we thought. Right? But the 3 older guys in the room were like, here's the expert. We're like, we're the expert. Like, we're here. We're on your payroll. But simply because somebody was brought outside of the agency, they were viewed as an expert, and somebody who's paid to be brought from outside. It's this shocking thing where we just don't listen to them because they're junior, or because they're youth. And there is some good, like Diet Coke just came out with a can campaign to reach the youth, not only millennials, because millennials now are like between 20 and 40. Like when people say the word millennials, they're not talking about a 38-year-old somewhere causing problems, right? You're just talking about young people. That's the word for it. Yeah. That's code for young people right now, just like it was Gen X for us. And looking at it where we get all this anger and all this upset at that core group of people when they are the people who could stop Diet Coke from putting out cans of Diet Coke that say, and I quote, one just says lit. I'm getting our younger friend reaction over here where he just nearly choked.
Why is this not working?
Just says lit. And then they tried other phrases, but some of the most popular phrases are trademarked right now, so they didn't use it.
Right.
So instead of Yas Queen, it's like, "Yes, girl." And I'm like, you just ruined the entire phrase, insulted the entire movement, right, for that uses Yas Queen, the entire LGBTQT community by doing that. But they're like, no, we want to be hip. You know how you're hip with younger people? You don't try to be hip. You know how I make our kids embarrassed is when I blatantly attempt to be hip just to make them nervous and upset. And you can't be that way without having the actual, they're sitting right there. They're in your agencies, and someone could say, please don't put lit on a can of Diet Coke. Can you not do that?
Right.
But we don't allow them. We create the structure where the younger you are, the more junior you are, the less say you have. And we could prevent all the things in our books. That's the thing. But we have one book called QR Codes Kill Kittens, which is a picture book of business screw-ups. And almost every single one of those could have been avoided if you found somebody on the team who was junior and said, don't do that.
Yeah, and like, don't you think that the real thing for these organizations is that they have to be accepting of these new, fresh ideas that are coming from a lot of the targeting that's going on, and yet harnessing those ideas through the experience that the older management may or may not have.
Yeah. But the thing is, I also have to. We got to realize that we all play a part in this. I play a part in this. You play a part in this. We all do. Where we look at things, and we just think because. Again, we were sold a false bill of goods 20, 30 years ago about how things work. And now, it used to be you come up with a campaign, you come up with the idea, you get the creator, there's a process, there's a time span. And now, if we shift over to like the content creation side for a second, overall, a part like a content marketing side of things, there is an endless appetite for content, not weekly, not monthly, hourly.
Yeah.
And you come up with a campaign and you say, okay, so here's our campaign. We're gonna do TV, we're gonna do some print, we're gonna do some AdWords, maybe some Facebook advertising. We're doing 17 versions of it because it's gonna go on Snap, it's gonna go on Instagram Stories, it's gonna go on TikTok, it's gonna go here, and all of those ones on Snap and Instagram are vanished and they never existed after 24 hours.
Yeah.
You know how upsetting that's got to be for everybody? You know how frustrating it's going to be? You take the same amount of time to work on content that used to have a shelf life of a month, 6 months, or a year that dies in a day. That's got to be heartbreaking.
And I guess the word is disposable.
It
right?
is exactly disposable.
Right.
It's a perfect word for it.
So yeah, I know for me, and you must have experienced this too when you were editing together your videos and stuff like that. I mean, for us, you could easily spend an entire day creating something. You could do one 30-second commercial and be in a studio sometimes for 2 days.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
Right? While the guy's cutting tape and lining up, sound effects and stuff like that. And now, just in the business that I worked in several years ago, clients don't even show up anymore. Mm-mm. They just email me when you're done, right? And you're right. It's still the same amount of people trying to craft something, and yet the demand for it is like lightning speed, and everyone forgets it. Like, maybe that's why, Marion Barry, he was reelected.
Yeah.
Because whatever happened in the past is all over now.
It's all gone.
Seems like a good candidate.
It's the old news is measured in minutes at this point. Yeah. And that's what a lot of times when I get, like, I don't do consulting, I don't do anything, but I have people who reach out and just say, hey, what would you do in this situation? Mm-hmm. And when something goes wrong sometimes, and I'm like, just wait.
Just wait, because everyone will forget.
It'll go away.
Right.
I mean, for small things. I mean, major things that you need to address stuff. And I think one of the best ways is to get in front of stuff and be transparent about it. Sometimes I'm like, well, it's never as big a deal as in your head for minor things. I'm just like, it'll go away. Just because this news cycle is minutes and the content cycle is minutes. And
so is that good? Is that good or is it bad? No,
I think it's bad. I think, look, I thought in the 90s we were overexposed to advertising. And now I went to a urinal yesterday. Ad in front of me. I'm just waiting for the LED screen actually in the urinal, which then automatically diagnoses your urine and chooses an ad. Yeah. Hey, maybe you need a little more broccoli in your life, sir. Maybe lay off the asparagus. Yeah. It's like that's where we're going, because what other frontier do we have?
It's true that it's like what piece of real estate is still untouched by some kind of.
But I've also never seen more brilliant advertised than I have today. So it's opened up some stuff too, where I think every third thing I buy is because of an Instagram ad, and I didn't even know I needed this stuff.
Yeah.
Like I bought a Raptors throw blanket. Why? Because We the North. That's why. And I'm going to buy it. And then We the North is a phrase. It's a marketing. And all these little gifts, and mostly gifts, like gifts for Allison. Instagram has been a godsend for that. I bought the night sky poster, which is you pick a day and you pick where you are, and it does a poster of what the stars were that night, and it was the day we got married in Vegas, and it's from Vegas, and like, come on, and a forever rose. It lasts a year. It's been 2.5 years, by the way. It's still standing beside our bedside table. So if you have a significant other, you're hurting to figure out gifts, just get on Instagram and search a couple of things, and then you're going to get served up perfectly.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I want to just circle back to the viral thing, because we still have clients who will walk into the room and they'll say, "I want a viral video," and usually the response is like, rub a lamp. Right, like you're asking for something that seemingly is something that happens organically, that can sometimes never be predicted. It's a cat playing the piano, and it's just like what people want to see.
Yeah.
So like when clients talk to you and they say, and you had a whole business that was about that, I'm kind of fascinated to hear, like, you must have broken it down in a sort of a left brain way, right?
Yeah. Viral is we call it third circle. Nothing's truly viral until it's third circle. So your first circle is your followers, and I don't mean that by Twitter. I mean this anything. Your loyalists, the ones when you sent out something, they'll bite. They like it. They love you no matter what. So. Like for me, if Waffle House or Shake Shack send something out, I'm interested. Like I'm their first circle. Like I love their stuff, and I'm a devoted.
You're on a bar graph somewhere in their meetings.
Yeah. They're like, this guy's always jumping on our stuff, so we don't need to forget him. We need the next. So the second circle is. So if Waffle House comes out with a video and I'm like, it's amazing, I love their bacon, and I send it out to my people. So that second circle will be exposed to something, but they have no connection to the brand. It's those people. If they share it and it reaches their circle, which is the third circle, that's when you know you've gone viral, which is somebody sharing your content with no condition. Because the first circle can also be filled with employees and friends and family. So employees are sharing the brand's content because they worked on the campaign, or all these things where there's a vested interest in the share, one way or the other. It's the unconditional sharing of something, talking about something, that's viral. And but viral isn't a number either. Like going viral, if you have a targeted segment you go after, and let's say your market is Airstream owners, right? And that's a niche, that's a unique marketplace. So going viral in there could be 1,000 views of something because you sent it out to 100 people. It doesn't have to be millions or billions. And viral's a result. It's like walking into somewhere and saying, "I want our campaign to be successful." Right. Yeah, no kidding. Right. No, the result on almost every ad campaign is going viral. It's just people sharing it with other people. That's the goal, because it reaches outside your paid reach, right? And that's the goal, really, for an ad to go from a paid to an organic. That's a really cool thing to happen. But I once had somebody come to when we had the agency. Somebody came and said, "We've already made our video. We'd just like you to make it go viral." I'm like, I'm not Harry Potter. Like, I'm not going to just wave the wand and off it goes. Right. It's just not how it works. I don't decide what goes viral. You don't decide. It's the audience. And I'm usually fairly accurate on what I think can go viral, but sometimes I'm not. And that's where. But I also knew something, like I do testing. I look at analytics. My hobby is marketing still. I love conversion. I love split testing. And so even like I had a Facebook video just about 2 years ago. I put it up, and it was part of my millennial rant, but it was a really good bit. And I know it's funny because I have an immediate feedback from an audience. They're laughing. And I have this millennial rant where I talk about millennials and I asked the audience who in here is between this age and this age, and they put up their hand, and I feign surprise. I'm like, oh, you're here, okay. I thought it was fellow old people. And then I go, I'm sorry, I mean leaders, with air quotes in the air. And they laugh. And I said, I'm going to translate what millennials mean to you. When us older people say millennials, working with you, hiring you, marketing to you, what we mean is people younger than us, and we don't like you. Right? That's the bit. So you laughed. It was awesome. Right. And so I took that bit on stage. Great crowd, sounds great. Mic on me, perfect video, and I put it out, and we had 50,000 people on the marketing page, fans at the time. And we sent it out, and it got 250,000 views, which is great. It went viral. You could see the on shares, like the data on sharing and how it goes. That's where your viralness is happening, and which is important. But I'm like 250,000. Nope, that's not enough. I know it's funnier than that. I know I'm not doing something right in the presenting of the video. So in the analytics, and I looked, and there wasn't a lot of people watching it with sound. And the key with that video is you got to click play. I need you to hear the audio, because other than I just look like an angry mime, right? It just doesn't work. So we redid the video, same exact clip. It's 2 minutes, same exact clip, but instead of just the video, we put letterboxing on the top and bottom. It says what old people mean when they say millennials. So their goal was to stop the thumb scroll. And it's these vanity metrics that make us think we're successful when we weren't. 250,000 views for a video it took me 2 minutes to clip out of a talk. Success? No. It wasn't, because people actually weren't consuming it, because a Facebook view is 3 seconds. That's not a view. That's walking by somebody's cubicle and you think they farted, but you have no confirmation, right? Sure. That's 3 seconds. Like it's not, and like YouTube, it's 30 seconds. And so if you drill down to the analytics, a couple levels down, which is what we should be doing, it shows, I letterboxed the video, put it back out, and that got 13 million views.
Wow.
Same exact clip, same audience, 30 days apart. And then I went to the analytics, but it wasn't, the reach was 35 million, the views was 13 million. All those are vanity metrics. We need to drill down. And it was actually 7 million views over 10 seconds. But then you got to drill down again. It was actually 4.3 million views over 10 seconds with sound on. That's the metric that we should be looking at. That's where it's not about being viral or not, because I can get you views. Do you guys have clients right now that want views? Because I can buy them for a nickel. Right? I can get you views all you want. It's not the views you actually need, though. But if we got to look at what metrics you got to set this before doing it. You got to say, what needle do we want to move, and can we move it with this marketing? And we're limited somewhat. What goes from marketing to sales, and there's that blur when it comes over. But I think we have to get the metrics right first.
Right.
But here's the moral of that story. Here's the end actual metric that matters. My only job is doing keynote talks at events, at companies, at associations. So my metric for success, although it doesn't cost me anything for that video and people laughed and that's wonderful, my metric is requests for inquiries about speaking. And you know how many that video got from 4.3 million views or 35 million reach was 0.
Really?
0. Actually, no. One guy reached out and said, "Can you come do your comedy act at my barbecue?"
Well, I was going to say, because when leading up to right before you made that comment about how quote unquote maybe successful it was, I was going to say, well, it sounds like you're about to say, well, that was a flashpoint in my brand.
Yeah. Nope. Nothing. And so the guy said, "Would you come speak at my barbecue?" And obviously my reply was, "What's your budget?" And whatever, man, bar mitzvah, barbecue.
Do I get to eat?
Yeah, man. Are you including lunch? That's important. But it was, and then I sent out a video of my speaker trailer. So it's like a demo reel for my speaking. We had it made and was really happy with it and put it out. And it got 4,000 views and I got 14 inquiries about speaking. The metrics matter. We have to focus on those. But the problem is you go to a client on the surface and say, 14 million views, 4,000 views.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Breaking it down, and also I'm interested to know, you believed you had something that people wanted to watch, but you didn't abandon it.
Right.
Like you could have said, well, it doesn't work.
But it's so different now that we can test and split test and change something and put it back. Now, I also understand everybody watching and listening right now is I don't have a boss. I'm not working for a client. I can make these changes on the fly. And it's easy for me, and I understand just changing a client's video and retrying it again is not exactly smooth to sell to somebody or put it out there. But to be able to say to somebody, it did well, but it should have done better. Let's look into it. That's a good quality to have. I really think that you are believing in something, and maybe, but mind you, maybe it just isn't good. Maybe it didn't resonate the way we thought, or maybe it's because it looks like an ad to people, it won't go. But I think we have to exhaust our knowledge and our resources, which are more vast now than ever. The analytics and the abilities and the ABCD testing we can do for stuff is immense, and I don't want us to settle.
So clearly the left, we'll call it the left brain side of things, which is the analytics and strategy and so on. So let's delve into the right brain part of it when it comes to the creativity of it all. How do you I want to say, how do you drag that into more of a left brain analytical thing? Because if you're talking about the deployment of something and that there's best practices as it relates to that, let's say if it's viral or whatever, then when it comes down to messaging, is the word like authenticity, is that the thing that drives like the creative engagement of what the thing is?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know if you're right in that regard?
But it's gray. I don't know about you, but the older I get, I was so black and white 15 years ago. Like when I started on marketing, when I had the book, I'm just like, this is the way. And I had to. You have to be that way because nobody likes somebody who just sits on the fence. It's not comfortable and it hurts, and it's depending on the fence, and it doesn't resonate. And I knew that polarization, which is also my personality, is the only way I can go. I didn't want to water it down, and I took a stand on stuff. And we fear the retaliation from polarization, but we forget the attraction it brings as well. And we have strong following and strong fans. But here's the thing, you don't know, and you won't. And the word authenticity is one of my triggers because authenticity isn't a campaign. Right? It's a trait. It's a way of doing things, and we either are or we aren't. And we have examples like McDonald's and their the chicken nugget thing they did. I thought it was brilliant when they actually said, "Look, this is what you're all saying and seeing in the pink slime. This is actually how we do it." Right. I loved that campaign. I thought it was a brilliant way of doing it because it was somewhat authentic. And I say somewhat because anytime you script and go through multiple levels, it just loses a layer of authenticity. Because when you say, no, I think we should say this or say this, authenticity is about being the brand that people thought we were. And transparency and all those words together. Nobody's 100% transparent or authentic. I really don't. Because if I was, I wouldn't wear pants on stage. So we all have a degree of it,
right?
But depends on where it goes. And I don't think authenticity exists with an agency and a client and then their stakeholders. I just think there's just a version of it somewhere, but when we use it, it turns into a campaign. Yeah, authenticity is a campaign, and that hurts my soul.
Well, and I look back to the earlier question about your background and human resources, and clearly you like people, and so much of a relationship between a brand is about people. Why do you think that the relationship part of brands or companies to their customers, why, like a relationship, does it seem like there's fatigue that sets in, and then all of a sudden there's no romance, there's no dating there? I think the term that you used was something like keeping them ecstatic, right? And when I read that, I was like, geez, Scott, I mean, that's exhausting. Yeah. I mean, I might want to call my wife right now and kind of go, are you ecstatic with me? She'd be like, I don't know if I ever have been, but
it's a little much.
Yeah.
It's a little much to think we're ecstatic.
Yeah. How do you break that down and kind of go, look, I mean, you have to care, and people will, on a human level, will sense that, and if they sense that, they're probably more inclined to be intertwined with you.
I honestly don't think you do have to care. I think you choose, though. So you choose that there's companies that want to hear from their customers and they want to be able to improve and make it better, and there's companies that don't. And I'm not being flippant here. I'm not. Look, both can do business. I can't. The biggest problem in our world of this kind of relationship marketing world and social media and ecstatic versus static versus vulnerable customers is that it's a way of thinking. And there's businesses that, from the existence of time, and they will continue to be here, that couldn't care less about their customers. Just buy or goodbye. But that's okay. Like, that's their business. And if we think, and I'm not being on my high moose here and up top and saying we all need to have relationships. I don't need to talk to a toilet paper company. I don't. I just need it to be functional, right? I don't need a relationship with Charmin, right? I just want to get the toilet paper at I don't need to talk to Oscar Mayer Wieners. I just want to eat the hot dog. And so we have this almost relationship now, exhaustion on the other side of it. And it doesn't mean you have to have it. The question when it comes to ecstatic versus static customers is taking the pulse of your marketplace and saying, are we doing a good enough job? Because, I think if your wife is not ecstatic with the relationship, you should probably know that too, because there's a big market out there, right? And there's a churn happening with the customer. And I think we want to be able to find out at least. I don't want just complacency. I don't want customers to just be okay with it because they're spending money. I do want to find out, because if we do, like, if you look at ecstatic customers, and I don't mean the ones like I am as much as the next person not wanting somebody in your face excited about stuff. I don't get overly excited about stuff. I seem like a diva on stage, but I'm so laid back off stage, like that. I don't want yay all the time. It's exhausting. What I want to say is, can we do anything more for our customers that would make them even more happier customers with us, and therefore we're less susceptible to competition? Because I really believe that competition a lot of the time is our fault. If we lose a customer to competition, we should have known. We did know. We just didn't have the things in place to find that out. And I think we lose. It's like me leaving a newsletter because it's so annoying after becoming a customer, because they get around the canned spam, they get all this stuff. Look, here's the thing. You did it. I'm your customer. You win. Marketing has succeeded. Off we go now to a future wonderful relationship of Scott ordering flowers online with a company I won't name, and up there. And then I got 3 emails a day from them. Flowers. And I'm like, I haven't forgotten.
Right.
I only have so many moms that I'm sending Mother's Day flowers to. And by the way, that just happened. It's done. She has a birthday and she has a Mother's Day and stuff. I know you're there. Give me something once a month, maybe? Sure. This is coming up. Great. Remind me about Valentine's Day. Helpful. Awesome. Yeah. But I left. I was and then I clicked unsubscribe, and it brought me to a landing page. And you can guess what it said. Are you receiving emails too frequently? Would you like to have that lesson? Just click here. I'm like, if you know the problem, if you already know the number one problem, but it's some guy in a data job saying, look, the more emails we send, the more money we make. And instead of trying to find that sweet spot of money versus frequency, it's about longevity of customer. But in this world of quarterly earnings and weekly looks at sales, it's really hard to play the long game when everything is based on the short game. That's a whole other conversation for hours about that.
I know, and you mentioned it, and I was, I had one of my prepared questions was going to be, like I like to watch reality-based talent shows only for the train wrecks, and I'm sure everybody does, right? You want to see the person who got up there, some wretched soul who didn't have someone in their life who loved them to tell them that you can't sing.
She bangs, she bangs, yeah.
Right. And I was going to say, like, should everyone be an entrepreneur, or is that a good question?
Yeah, great question.
I wanted to talk to you about that because
to talk about that.
I know in your list, the other thing I wanted to bring up with you was don't microwave fish in the lunchroom, right? So great LinkedIn article that talked about some advice
new grads.
New grads.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but feel the realness of you being in a lunchroom and some tilapia.
Boop, boop, boop. Is that fish?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
So you did have a quote unquote job
for 4 years,
right?
Out of college, yeah.
And so you broke out on your own. So like, how did that all happen, and how did you make that decision? Because you sound like you had a very entrepreneurial mind before that.
Yeah, always. And I found that the entrepreneur is a Latin word meaning bad employee. Like it's really, I just can't. Like people say I hate working for somebody or no, I can't. Every part of my DNA, most of my jobs ended poorly. It's you know what I mean? All the name tagged, hair netted jobs I had growing up never ended well. It was never an amicable divorce between them. And it was just me usually flipping somebody the bird and walking out. And
you're a human resource guy. So what's that about?
Ironic, isn't it? But I always, because I don't play games. I don't like internal politics. I don't like favoritism. I don't like that because it always puts somebody out in the curb for something, and I just wouldn't play the game because I can't play a game I don't know the rules to that also constantly change. So for me, when it came to being an entrepreneur, I was 13 years old and I opened my own comic book store, and I didn't tell my mom. It was in our basement. You should tell your mother you're opening a comic book store in your basement. Luckily, I had no customers, but it was like we were open for business. I sold one comic book, I think, to a buddy, and he still hasn't paid me. That was in '87. So we got accounts receivable, still working on that one at 33 cents or whatever I sold the comic book for. But I want to be careful because the first part you asked and versus the second part, and I'll jump into that. I don't want to say that everybody can't be an entrepreneur. I just think it's not for everybody. I think that because a lot of people look at entrepreneurship, especially when they're working, it looks so much more wonderful when you're working for somebody because you're like, I do my own thing, right? If I want, but an entrepreneur, the flip side is that wonderful line: an entrepreneur will work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours for somebody else. Like that's a mindset. It is like any entrepreneur you talk to. It is a roller coaster. I have never been more scared and more desperate. And I've also never been more successful and happy. And that's the conundrum of entrepreneur, is that everything gets busy, and the time you should be marketing yourself, you're too busy with client work, and then it all stops. And then you're looking there going, oh, this is the time I should have been marketing 6 months ago. It's hard. And I really think it's a personality based thing a lot, right? It has to do with your brain. And I just think, I think that what comes with the entrepreneurial spirit is also the taking risk.
Yeah.
That's in your DNA. Again, we talked about risk before, and I think entrepreneur is risk. And that doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur and that's what you're doing for the rest of your life. I have friends that were running their own thing and then they worked for somebody else for a while and they went back. Like, it's at the end of the day, you need to have a roof. Yeah. You need to eat. And if you have family and kids, you need to suck it up sometimes and do the crap that you need to do. But when people are working in an office and looking out saying, look at that grass over there it's Scott's house. It's really green. I'm like, no, you know what it took to get that grass green right now? It's artificial turf, by the way. It's like, it's all these, you don't see behind the curtain, and behind the entrepreneurial curtain is not pretty. A lot of the times. I've never, ever, I'm telling you, man, I've been talking to entrepreneurs my whole life, and because I'm fascinated by stories. I love case studies and stories, and not one entrepreneur successful, when they're asked, how was it? Not one of them said, easy.
Right.
Never was.
Yeah, I mean, I had a career freelance copywriter in recently, and I asked him questions like, what happens in the dry periods, because it can be very frightening, and especially people who have families and mortgages, to kind of not know when the next thing is coming up, and not to drive yourself crazy or other people you love crazy because you're just so that way. But what I said was, we know that when you get a mortgage, there's a fixed rate and there's a variable. And there's tons of data that says the variable, you're going to win. In the end, you will win. You'll save thousands and thousands of dollars. And yet, I'm the type of person who is like, just lock me in, because I will be up at night going, oh my gosh.
Lock it up.
Yeah, that's right. So you're probably right. It is probably a personality thing.
I do think that.
Unlike a singer who is actually a talent thing, it's.
And I think there's a combination of that too, where I always said that success in business is a combination of luck, timing, skill, and effort. And results may vary, and because like look at me, I was bankrupt in 2010. I had my agency, I had the most successful one on this planet, and I was just cocky, and which comes with success sometimes. And I did no work, I did no refer. I had it down to like a 97% profit margin on my stuff, with no work. At the point, I had people who wrote the movies and designed them, and I was just kind of I turned into the front man, and I just did webinars and stuff that attracted people. They killed, and then nobody was in the market for $10,000 slideshows anymore. It just went, and should have seen it coming. I could have seen it coming, and like a lot of people, I didn't. And in 2009, I had negative revenue, and my assistant Karen, who's still with me today, stuck around.
Wow!
And I sat her down. I said, I can't pay you. I'm out. I can't pay you. And I said, you should probably find something somewhere else.
How quickly did that happen?
It took much longer than I was looking at. I thought it was quick, but I should have seen it. I should have seen the signs. I should have seen the downwards in revenue, the downwards in signups, all this stuff. But I wasn't looking at it because I was untouchable, right? And I had that. I still had some of that young ignorance going, which is great. If you talk to every entrepreneur who started anything, they said one of their biggest skills was ignorance. They didn't know what they didn't know, and they didn't know they shouldn't have doing what they just did. And they would never have made their company if they didn't. So I was okay with that. It got me that far, but then it was just everything crumbled. And I sat there in 2009 just thinking, I don't know what to do. And it's on me. I have kids, right? Family, rent. And it was something that I'm like, this is on me and I need to fix this. And then I joined Twitter. It changed my life.
Okay, so You got to tell us more. I'm like, we can't stop the chapter
That's
there.
the teaser. Right back after these messages.
That's right.
The story of how Scott pulled it together, but yet still lives in a homeless Airstream trailer.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
This is where I'm like, I'm supposed to be smart enough to know what that really meant, but I don't really know what that means, you know?
But I joined. I'll give you the 5-cent version for you, but it's because it's a long thing. But I sat around and I had formed Unmarketing. That was the agency. That was called Unmarketing. And I'm sorry, I'm really bad at staying on topic, if you can tell. That's why I have slides in my keynotes, or I would go off on tangents for an hour, and I'd be in the intro slide, and it would be 60 minutes later, I'd be like, thanks for having me, and gotten into none of it. So this is because I am a Jack Russell Terrier on speed. This is just my brain works. But because you had asked where it turned from entrepreneur to this, and this is exactly a perfect segue back to where with Twitter. So Owen, who we just moved out to UBC for his first year, so that was a big thing. He's just turned 18. I started on marketing when he was born, and why I did that was I was this national sales training manager for the packaging company. So my job was flying around everywhere, and I did it. I flew around. I'm in Youngstown, Ohio. I'm in Carlsbad. I'm in all these secondary, smaller cities that have our factories and our plants, training distributors how to sell packaging. And I did it. That was my job, and I did it really freaking well, and I'm really good at it. And we made waves, and then Owen was about to be born, and I said, I can't do this. I can't travel on weekends because it was saving you money. It's saving the company money. The Saturday night stayovers was saving money if you flew on a Saturday instead of a Sunday, and I did that, and I was a good employee. And I went to the president and said, because I was a sales trainer, what am I doing during the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 if I'm not training? Nothing. Nothing. You can only revamp PowerPoint so many times. I had nothing to do. And I pitched telecommuting to him. I said, look, Owen's about to, our baby's about to be born, and I can't do 40 hours a week in the office and then travel every other weekend and be away. That's not what I want to do. And I said, so we can do this, or I can't do this anymore. And he's like, we're not ready for that work from home stuff. So we'll see you Monday. And I'm like, no, you won't.
Wow.
And then I went on parental leave, and they didn't know what parental leave was. And luckily, being HR background, I knew very well what it was. I said, no, I'm going to take the next 4 months off. And somebody said, can we stop you? And I said, nope. And they said, okay. And I took 4 months off. But the company was still going. Like, we were still going. We still had revenue, but this is 18 years ago. And so we kept going, and then the company was doing well, everything was doing fine, and then 9/11 happened. Obviously, back then I had a training company. Back then I was doing training stuff. 9/11 hit. Obviously, it hurt a lot of people of the world, and I was thrown for a loop with that. Came up with the viral video stuff. The first client in the viral video was me. It was for me. It was for my speaking, and it blew up. And I'm getting calls from Disney. Come speak to our audience. They're like, just send us an invoice. I'm like, this is how business works. Anybody can do this. And they're like, how much is it for you to come speak? I'm like, $12? Like, I don't know how much it is to speak, and I have no idea.
You came up with a rate card like in your mind right now,
like that, and still doing it to this day. And and so I didn't. And so anything was, these things are flying, but there were some health issues in the family, and so I had to come off the road. And then I started this. I said, well, I can't use the video to help me. I can use it to help other people. And then so we said all speakers and authors came, and we made these for years. And then the recession hit, and I got kids, and I'm doing my own thing, and I'm like, I'm finally a successful entrepreneur, and then it all went away. And that I didn't think I was going to come out of that. I just think failure is such a biggest fear, and then it happens. I don't care the circumstances. It happened, and that is not cool for anybody. And I then said, okay, I believe other people believe in community. I think it works. I've been using message boards and admin stuff since '94. I've been always about community online, and it's got to be something here. And I joined Twitter, and I first tried it like any marketer. I'm like, it's not for me. I just put it up there and automated crap, whatever. And so in January 2009, I said, I'm going to give it 30 days. I got nothing else to do. I'm broke. I'm screwed. And I'm not very employable because of my attitude and my personality, but I'll get a job anywhere if it was to provide. And I said, I'm going to give myself a month, 30 days, January 2009. And I tweeted 7,000 times. 70% of them were replies. So I was just talking with people, not at them. And I went from 1,200 followers to 10,000.
And what was the content? The content
Just
was
pithy advice about social media and life. And of course, it's in a bubble because I'm giving Twitter tips on Twitter. So it's right, you know what I mean? So people say they want to use me as a case study. I'm like, use the context though. Mm-hmm. So I tweet things like, reply, retweet, respond, the actual ingredients of good Twitter, and like I know. Mm-hmm. I know people what they'll like, and that's my talent is little pithy things. I can write titles, not books. Right. Allison writes the books. I talk on stage. Like I my focus is I'll come up with a headline and run away. Like that's just I'm all hooks, and I realize, oh God, there's something here: luck, timing, skill, effort. And so I put all my effort into it. And I said, look, this is coming up. This is blowing up, and we're at the infancy. We're at the early adopter phase of this stuff. And if I catch this wave when it becomes mass adoption, I'm going to be on the forefront. And I turned into being the most influential person on Twitter in Canada and one of the top in North America because I sat on my couch in my robe and I was desperate. And it blew up. And I always knew that if you want a book deal, you make noise. And I'm good at making noise. And then Wiley and Sons, the publisher, approached me and said, why haven't you written a book yet? And I said, why haven't you offered me a book deal yet? And she said, touche. And Shannon Varga, who's still at Wiley, who's awesome, said, all right, let's do this. And I got a book deal from marketing. I got a $15,000 advance, and that was the greatest amount of money I've seen in my life because I was so desperate. And I had sat Karen down and said, you should get a job. And she says, I believe in you. And she stayed with me. And she makes a percentage, so she stayed with me for $0.
Wow.
And she's doing fine now. But then it was a big leap of faith, and I wrote the book, and I'm still not making money.
Right. Well, I was going to say.
So I got the book advance, got to write the book. I start the book 18 days before it's due because I'm an idiot. And I wrote 38,000 words of, I'm trying to word it rightly. They were written vomit. Written vomit. You ever read Written Vomit? It is ugly. And I'm talking to Allison, who I met on Twitter. I have the greatest social media ROI of anybody. Don't at me, okay? This is it. Like I will fight some people about this. And we're talking back then on BVM, on BlackBerry Messenger. We were chatting, and I'm like, I'm screwed. I wrote every word I know in this book, and I made some words up. Like I got nothing. And she's like, let me have a look. I had no idea she was a writer. And she took the 38,000 words of horribleness and made it into 60,000 words of beautifulness. And just by talking to me, just by saying, what do you mean by this? And I'm like, everybody knows what that means. She's like, humor me. And I'm blinded by her beauty. And I'm like, okay, pretty lady.
What sorcery is this?
What is this is happening? I'm doing work against my will. And then she made it into what it is. And then we submitted it. And then I said, okay, I got to do a tour here. I got to do something. But my whole goal for the book was to get gigs, speaking gigs. Because that was my goal since I was 12, was to be a speaker. And so I sent one tweet in June 2010. One, who wants me to stop on their city for the Unbooked tour, fly me there, put me up, and buy 100 books in 30 cities. Ended up doing it.
Unbelievable.
10-week speaking tour, 30 cities, half of which are run by people who don't run events, don't have events, just wanted me to come. And then why you had to fly me down and put me up is I had no money. I was broke. I had a prepaid credit card from Money Mart to check into hotels. I had nothing. But I knew, I had belief that this way of doing business worked. It's just that I knew where I screwed up and how I did it wrong. I wasn't on marketing at the end of that when the recession hit. I was just being arrogant. And so I knew there was a community out there. And so I leveraged the community. And people say, you sent a tweet and you got a book tour? No, I sent 28,000 tweets. Right. And then I mentioned a book tour. Nobody wants to see the work. And the people use the word just in stuff, and it's greatly insulting. Not to me, but to anybody you say just to. Oh, you just did this? Yeah. I just sent a tweet.
Right.
You moron.
Yeah,
I spent my life, I spent leading up to this point, everything else, and you just did this? No, there's no just. There's no, how do you be successful in an agency? Oh, you just create great stuff. Shut your mouth. You create great. It's about managing people. It's about hiring. It's about retention. It's about marketing and client acquisition and client retention. There's so many. Don't just me. Because it's a thing that does not get boiled down to one thing. It's about believing in something, but not just that. And then it's actually an idea that resonates. It's the second part we forget when people say, just do it or just believe it. No. There's a lot of stories you have not heard. The majority of stories you have ideas that didn't work and never got resuscitated. You've got to find those stuff. And then once I got it, once the book hit and it went Globe and Mail bestseller, Mom's so proud, and it went crazy and it went nuts, and then it hit. I'm selling tens of thousands of copies, and I went out and did the 30-city speaking tour. Again, no money still, because you don't get book royalties for a long time. And I went out and I did 30 cities speaking, and I haven't stopped speaking since.
So how were you surviving then?
I wasn't. Loans, family, line of credit cards, but all gone because of declaring bankruptcy. And so it was not cool. It was a bad spot and horrible mentally because of that. Because you're the provider. You're supposed to, and then the chauvinistic side of me goes in my brain is you're a man, your father. Why aren't you providing the right way? You did this. It's a snowball, man. And the problem with entrepreneurial too, when you're running your own show, and it's not like this way for me now because I have Allison, who's the greatest asset in my life. You have nobody to tell you, hey, it's okay.
Right.
Especially when you're leading the pack.
Yeah.
Where do you go? That's why I went to Twitter.
Well, I was going to say, of the probably many moments in the wee hours of the morning where your thoughts are raging in your head and they're more real than anything that you can imagine, I have to think that one of them was, they just offered me a book deal. I don't think I have a book here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be one of the many things that you are freaking out about, right?
Oh, God. It's talking about sleepless. It's not nights, it's years. And the doubt can get you, and it really takes you down. And anytime I meet an entrepreneur, you just look in their eye and you just like, I feel you.
Well,
I understand it.
I'll go back to the American Idol kind of comment, which is, you have somebody that doesn't seem to have something right now, and the advice sometimes is keep going. And there's a lot of people who are maybe sit back and judge and kind of go, there's no amount of lessons and no amount of time in front of the microphone that's ever going to get them to the place that they need to be. Yeah. And yet the message is always just keep going. Well, when you're dug that far down into a hole, to have the stomach to still continue to do it has got to be so paralyzing.
I always say the market will give you the results. It'll say it's the ultimate judge, right? Or capitalism is the ultimate judge of success sometimes. But to me, it was an unwavering belief that it could work. And the problem is it didn't have to. Luck, timing, skill, effort. And that luck and timing was a huge part of that. If I hopped on Twitter today and tweeted 7,000 times this month, nobody cared less. Nobody cared less. It's such a different platform now. Back then, it wasn't celebrity-based. It was before even Ashton Kutcher was on there. It was cheers. You hopped. I went on Twitter. What's up, everybody? And it was like, Norm! And everybody would just write me back. And they're like, what's up? I would spin tunes at night under the name DJ Twitterlicious. That's right. That's right. For anybody in this room here, I did call myself DJ Twitterlicious, but I was huge in the mom community because I was a single dad at the time, and I was put the kids to bed, and so all the moms would pop on at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and we'd be spinning Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock and Maestro Fresh West for them, and I knew what they liked, and you just got to spin that stuff, right? It's joy and pain, or It Takes Two. It gets them going every time, but that was my world because it was also my sanctuary. Because as an entrepreneur, I didn't have a water cooler. I didn't have the place where I could walk up and go, did you see that? Did you see this? Because especially when you're running the show, you can't go to somebody usually who's a subordinate and say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's just not, It doesn't exactly breed confidence in your employees. And so I needed that place, and I found it through there.
So for the advice for the younger people who are trying to break into a business and figure out what it is they want, you had just mentioned a minute ago that public speaking was the thing that you wanted to do since you were however old.
12, yeah.
And there's a lot of people, even myself, is where we envy you because you seem so sure of it and you know what that is. And yet there's tons of people who walk around kind of going, I don't think I know what I want. Yeah. Right?
And that's more common than I'm very self-aware of a few things. One is that results aren't typical. The disclaimer at the bottom of a commercial.
Results may vary.
Because thank you. Results may vary. And looking at this thing of my path to how getting here today is certainly not one I thought I would take, and it's like any entrepreneur's path. It's just a bunch of squiggly lines, and there's no straight line to anything. But I also realized how rare it is to know what you want to do. But I also knew I wanted to be in HR. And I don't want to be now. So
Right.
it's like it's not about saying, what am I going to figure out what I want to do? It's figuring out that you want to do what you're doing now. And if not, how do we shift from that? And that's a big shift, because especially when you're new and coming in there, you just like, I just want a job.
Right.
You just like so it's like this hierarchy of the Maslow's hierarchy of newly minted grads is like, I just want to be employed to start, and then you start saying, okay, now what do I want to do, right? Because you want to show mom or dad or both that the education was worth it, and you come in, and then but sometimes one of the best things you can have in a job or creating your own thing is realizing you don't want it. I think it's really powerful to realize this is not what I want to do. Our oldest, Aiden, went into broadcast journalism first in college, and he loved sports. He wanted to be a commentator, and then he realized partway through his first year, he actually didn't want to do it. He liked seeing it and stuff, but he realized when he went into it, and he's like, I don't want to disappoint you. I'm like, I can't be happier for you. I could not be happier for you to realize now. And I'm like, go out to the world and see how many people should have realized. And 20 years later, they're like, I don't like this, right? It's good to realize now,
right?
And then so he went into the music industry arts program, which makes my heart warm because of the music business, and that's good. And that should be looked on as it hasn't failed. It hasn't been like a waste of time. It's gotten to this point to realize this might not be your thing you want. But sometimes it's not about, it's a change of scenery or a change, or it's other circumstances, right? It's really hard to look at your life and look at where you want to go and strategically look at what you want to do when there's so many pressures on you currently. We're in a creative place right here. Creativity does not get spawned through stress. Creativity does not get spawned through financial worry. It happens when your mind's free to think. My ideas happen in every place that you don't want an idea to happen. Toilet, shower, like it's about to fall asleep. Like that's where my ideas, and why? Because your mind's at rest. And that's a big thing for that. On planes, I'm like, wherever I'm forced to not do anything, which I don't do a lot of things anyways, but it's like, that's where it happens. I do my best work on a plane with no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Because I'm not tempted to hop into the world to see how important I am, right? I'm not, the worst is going to sleep, by the way, if you have this. I'm in bed, I'm right there, I'm like, oh, there's the idea, now I'm awake.
Right.
And I write it down on my phone in my notes, and I put it there, and then it takes me another hour to fall back asleep. But that's the idea. And for my brain, if the idea comes in, it's going to leave soon and never come back, so I need to put it down.
I think that's a real insight. I mean, I think everybody talks about technology and how it's harder and harder to do this thing called, reflection, which, maybe for you and I would have been, we were forced into it because, you just didn't have any access to anything. This
mandatory
thing.
reflection.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If you had a spare in high school, you probably sit around and just wonder about stuff, most of the time. And now there's probably an app that tells you that now it's time for you to reflect.
It's time to reflect. Yes.
Yeah. It's
pain, but but I also look. Everything I'm saying today is from a position of privilege. I say you can't be creative if everything's coming down at you, but sometimes you have to be. Right. You're just not at your best for that, and sometimes it's also self-created stress. It's the most mentally I feel great is on a cruise. That's the most privileged thing I can possibly say. But it's only time I put my phone away in a safe. I'm like, I can do that right now.
Right.
Why don't I do that now?
Yeah, why am I not doing that?
Yeah. Why don't I do that now? And that's the thing is scheduling that time to have that. But the problem is, again, it's so privileged because I'm not working 5 days, 6 days a week and commuting and then I have the time to have that. So it's I don't want to sound like that guy from the top of the mountain saying, just do this to get up here. And when I didn't do that to get here, It was hard. It sucked. And I didn't know if it would work. And I just think that we have to give ourselves a break. We have to give ourselves some credit and give ourselves a break a little bit in business. That, you know what? We can't always make the right decision because we don't know what even saying something was the right decision is subjective. Sometimes we got to cut ourselves a little slack first so we can cut others some slack. It's so pressure. It's so real time. It's so 24/7 at this point, and competition is so fierce. And it's like people are buying AdWords in my name so they can get the keynote gig out of it. Like this is and that's easy. Like brands face this all the time, and I just just stop for a second. Just stop for a second and say, do we want the mental health of our company, of our agency, of our people to be a priority? And if it is, then you got to make it one. And that means less meetings, less demands, less work, and which equals better work. Mm-hmm. But we don't see that. We think FaceTime, not the phone version, but the actual FaceTime in an office is still important to people. Still. Right. I remember back in my short-lived corporate career, I would come in at 9 and I would leave at 5 because that was my hours for my job. And I'd walk in and somebody would say, must be nice. Or I'd leave at 5 and they go, nice banker's hours.
Right.
And I'm going to pick up the kids. And if I get there every minute after 6 p.m., it's $5 late fee in the daycare. You're like, I'm going to pay that? Are you serious? And I was commuting and I'm just like, I put in my, and here, I did the time, but I did my job. And the person who would be the person saying that, squawking that, is also usually the worst worker. But they put in the most face time.
Right.
They're there early, they stay late, but their productivity is nothing in the middle of it. And I realized, okay, not my circus, not my monkeys. Mm-hmm. And I just walked out and never came back.
Well, I got 2 more questions for you to wrap this up. And I ask all the guests this, which is, if you were going to give some advice, and you've already dispensed a lot of advice today, but if you were going to give a single or a couple pieces of advice for young people who are looking to break into marketing or advertising, what would it be? And then maybe dovetailing into what is it that you're working on now that you're excited about, or what the next thing's going to be?
Advice for young people getting in, or people getting into the field. Now, never let anyone make you feel your opinion's not worth anything, because you will be made to feel that. I was just speaking to somebody on Instagram just earlier, a student I Skyped into their class. They were using on marketing as their textbook. That's a good way to get me to come into your class, is to use the textbook. I'm like, yes, I will. And now she's graduated. She's in the field. And she's like, any advice for it? And this is exact advice I sent her, which was your knowledge will be intimidating because it's not the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to know more than anybody else in the room especially when you're new. Understanding that and knowing that is learning tact. It's not taught in school. It's not taught in a book. But tact, getting your idea out to somebody in a way that they don't feel threatened by the knowledge, by saying, oh, no, that's not how this works, or that's not how Instagram works. And it's social that really is doing it right now. That's because clients demand it, and why aren't we having this? And you're sitting there going, I don't even have, like, I had Snapchat before, and I deleted it because it was weird. I shouldn't be there. It's like showing up at a club, and you're 40, everybody else is 20. You're like, I should probably go home. You know how to make a club uncool? Have Scott show up, okay? You know why? Well, the youth aren't going to Facebook. Yeah, because we're there.
Right.
Nobody wants to party with their parents. Are you serious? No. So you have this great asset of knowledge, but just natural knowledge, right? And it should be on, by the way, everybody's resume. You should list under tech skills. You should be listing Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, because a lot of times the first layer of your resumes is electronic, meaning it's just being scanned for keywords. Those are the skills that people want. I don't know Snapchat properly. I don't know why DJ Khaled got lost on a frickin' jet ski and it turned him into a superstar on Snapchat. I don't, whatever. Okay, not my thing, but is it right for my client? And that's one of the biggest problems we get as well in marketing, is we only recommend our clients stuff we like versus what's best for their audience. So back to the youth, understanding that your knowledge has power, but it's also a threat. And coming to somebody who then will take the idea to the client, you want to be able to look as helpful versus, I wouldn't say demeaning because it's not that way, but like making somebody feel dumb because they don't know something. It's all how you word something, right? When somebody says, can we do this on Snapchat? And you saying, that's not how Snapchat works, makes people feel dumb. But if you say, the Snapchat's ecosystem kind of works like this, so why your idea might work over here. It's a little different. Learn from improv. Right, learn from the yes and movement of improv, of how to make somebody feel inclusive, because it's a brain screw when your boss knows less than you. It is. Right. It's like knowing more than your parents about something, which used to be not the way, and now it's like we're all teaching our parents how to work phones and everything else. But it's no different. I used to help set up the VCR. Right. You know, when I was 15, I would go help. That was always been that way. So always your knowledge is power, but it's also dangerous depending on how you use it. And you don't understand office politics until you're in it. You don't understand tact until you're in it. And I wrote to her on Instagram, I just said, people do not behave rationally. If you can grasp that, you're golden.
Yeah.
There's self-interest, there's self-preservation, there's all of these things in politics happening. So just observe.
That's what I like about Josh. I mean, he has a lot of tact. He didn't ridicule me for having a Rogers email account.
Which
took up like 20 minutes of a lunch.
100% you should ridicule him. 100%. I saw an ad recently in a magazine on the back for high-end real estate, and the pair of them, two of them together, combined budgets. They're for mansions. Their email was something at Yahoo. At mother flippin' Yahoo. Not even. I would have taken Hotmail. I would have taken. That's how desperate I am. That's how low the bar is. Hotmail. It would be even better than a Yahoo address. I question you. Did you judged him on the Rogers, right?
Yeah.
You judged him on the Rogers, right? Yeah. But see, Hotmail's old school to me. Hotmail is OG to me.
Might be cool now.
Yeah, it's gone full, like fanny packs. Apparently people are liking them again. Nobody liked mine when I had it back in the day. Try to rock one now. Not happening. Hotmail, I'm like, that's original, man. That's original. Rogers, Yahoo.
What's wrong with you?
Have you used the internet?
Yeah,
Have you used
know.
it? There's available things and cooler names.
Yeah, Josh was like, how did you dress yourself this morning? I think that was the comment that came back. But,
it's amazing how we still function in this society, right? Right. That's why. That's always why. And I'm sorry, again, I forgot the second part.
The second is, what are you doing now? What are you excited about? Is there anything you want to touch on?
Yeah. So my whole life is wonderfully blissful. I do 60 to 70 keynotes a year at conferences and stuff, and I just can't wait every time I do one. Like I'm so excited. Like next week I'm doing Kelowna, which is where we moved Owen out to for UBC. I'd never gotten a gig in my life in Kelowna, and then he going out there, and I'm doing a totally separate gig there. So we get to go visit him, bring in my mom. We're gonna go see him.
That's awesome.
I just my life is M&Ms and peanuts and it's just so glorious. It's just happy, and I realize that I am now living the dream I had when I was 12, and I'm going to enjoy it. Because a lot of times what happens is we get success, and then we're on to the next one. Mm-hmm. To quote the poet Jay-Z, we're on to the next one. And we never celebrate that success. Maybe we throw a little shindig, a little soiree that night, and that's it. And then somebody asked me it's a vanity threshold in speaking is $1 million in bookings a year. And when I achieved that, it was 5-6 years ago. We were in Frankfurt. This blows my mind. We're in Frankfurt. I got paid to go to Frankfurt to talk to people. Like you don't have some jackass in Frankfurt that can yell at people. You need to bring me over there. Awesome. And we go. And we're sitting at a dinner, and another speaker friend of mine who I met there actually. And we're literally. I'm not making this up. We're having schnitzel on a patio in a beer stein in Frankfurt, Germany. And we talked about hitting that plateau, that $1 million. And he put his arm up in an arrow, and he's like, "So what's next?" Being the entrepreneur he is, what's next? And I took his arm and I flatlined it. And I said, this is what I want. We buy a house, we want a bigger house. We buy a car, we want a better car, the newer model, the newer thing. I'm still like that with phones. The new iPhone announcement just came out. I'm like, I want 3 cameras, right? I have no need for 3 cameras. I have no need for 2 at this point in my life, but it's okay. I should be using a flip phone, right? Rogers' email addresses should be using flip phones, right? That's pure flip phone. Yes, it's a pure. That's a non-ironic flip phone. Yes, that's what a Rogers address says to me. So, when you look at all this stuff, is that I am just loving life, and to be able to be in your dream and acknowledge it and realize it is blissful. And so for us, we just keep doing what we're doing. Allison writes the books, and people say, "How do you work together?" She writes the books. I do the talks on stage, and we don't tell each other how to do either. And we're each other's biggest fan in both endeavors. And that's important. So now we're working on book 6 comes out in November. Hasn't been announced yet, but I will tell you here, it's called The Jackass Whisperer. It's a departure from our first 5. It's how to deal with the worst people on earth, at home, at work, and online, even when the jackass is you. And it's 124 jackasses we've named in the book. And one's like at work, at home. The jackass has a family. The jackass goes to the gym. And so each page describes the jackass, like let's say the wide walkers. Okay, those are the people that walk 5 or 6 people wide at a mall or at an airport as a group, right? Right. We already have the emotional reaction, which is what we want. And you're just like, you're going to play Red Rover. Like, I'm going to break through this line. And then each jackass has the jackass response and the whisperer response. And you decide, do you want to, keep these jackass moves going, because we're all the jackass, right?
I mean, this might seem like an obvious question, but like, Was Jackass really the name that you were using when you were scribbling down these ideas?
But it has an origin story. So the whole thing has an origin story. So you go through the book, you check off which jackass you've been in the past 6 months, and then you have a score. Allison's got a score, and I've got a score. She scored higher, by the way, and she wrote the book, so no bias there at all. And so it came out, the whole title came out when I first got on Twitter, and I got huge momentum. And somebody randomly tweeted, so my Twitter name is Unmarketing, and he randomly tweeted, I know this guy from Toronto, and he says, I just watched 5 minutes of an unmarketing speaking video and didn't shoot myself in the face. I deserve a cookie. And I'm like, man, what? Where the hell did this come from? And I wrote to him, I'm like, why the hate?
Yeah.
And he wrote back, it's not hate, it's just facts, deal with it. And this is before the deal with it meme existed. I couldn't even drop my sunglasses down on my face. And somebody DM'd me. Somebody sent me a private message and said, you should win them over with kindness. And I wrote back, my job isn't to rehabilitate assholes online. I'm not the jackass whisperer. And it just stuck. And then I tweeted that, just generally, not towards him, but just in general. And it went nuts. And it went viral, and we made stickers and posters and socks that are all gone because they're so popular. And then Brene Brown, we were both keynoting at the same event. When she heard me say it on stage, she put it in Daring Greatly, which has now sold 6 million copies. So now everybody thinks it's Brene Brown's line. And so when I put it out, when we put out the books coming, people are like, why are you ripping off Brene Brown? I'm like, no, she quotes me. If you read the actual book, she's quoting us. And so this is the passion project. This is the fun book. And we realized, we were just doing it for fun. We realized it could be potentially our biggest one yet because it resonates. And we actually are waiting on 500 plush donkeys from the factory overseas. I actually Googled stuffed donkeys. Don't Google that, by the way. It never leaves your browser history. And it comes up taxidermy for donkeys and stuff, and you'll never lose that trail. I thought it
was going to be way worse than that.
Oh, dude, I promise you it does. But for your listeners, I'll keep it at that because our original. I'll give you a taste though. My original want for these donkeys, because now they're holding it's a huge donkey and he's holding a pouch with the book in it like this. But my original want was for you to have to reach inside the donkey, if you catch my drift, and pull it out. So I actually Googled donkey with wide anus opening. And so if I ever die in a car accident, can you delete my browsing history, please? It's going to come back to bite me.
Yeah.
And so we just got 2,000 socks in and 500 donkeys coming. We're having so much fun with it.
That's amazing. And
I realized this may be the next direction of it, but it's fun. And if you're not having fun, why are we doing this? If I wanted to not have fun, I'd get a job. It pays better.
Well, I can't think of a better note to leave on than donkey gaping. So
really, that should be the key word for this: donkey gaping. You'll get a lot of niche traffic, not what you want.
Scott, thanks so much for being on the show. It's been great having you, and tons of excellent, insightful stuff that you've laid at our feet today. So thanks.
Hey, I'm happy that I came, and I'm really enjoyed the conversation. I don't get to talk about this stuff much, so it's nice.
Awesome.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. This episode has been brought to you by the National Advertising Challenge, North America's only brief-based challenge that sends winners to Cannes, France.